Community, connection, spiritual growth, and social justice. Those were the things I heard mentioned more yesterday than any other. For those who are not aware or who are visiting, about 40 people from this congregation gathered yesterday to do the thrilling and exciting work of grappling with tough questions around long-term planning. And these questions were about the direction of the congregation's future for the next years. What do we want to be like? What do we want to achieve? And what might all of that look like? And how do we make it happen? People spoke passionately about their experience of this congregation, of coming here for the first time, or of when this little community was on its first wobbly legs 20 years ago. Connection feels like an inadequate word for the experience people described. Unitarian Universalism for many was a refuge, a safe place away from a world that treated them badly. UUism was a place that welcomed you and didn't demand that you believe a certain thing or pledge an oath or creed. This is the place that welcomed you when you didn't even know what you knew and weren't sure you believed what you believed. It is a place that says you are still holy if you are gay or lesbian or bi or queer or transgender. It is a place that says you are holy, period, no matter what. This is a place where people don't look at you strangely, where they generally listen, and where you are made welcome from the moment you come through the door. I cannot tell you how many congregations I know of that aspire to the degree of welcome we offer here. It is a thing to be proud of, and it makes sense that it is one of the first things people name when they talk about coming here for the first time. Community is another one of those nebulous words. It's too at once broad and thin to adequately describe the group of people that is here. A community is generally defined as a group or a gathering of people who share a location, or like a neighborhood, or a profession, or a workplace, or some particular interest or hobby. Our community crosses all of those. Our community is built around our shared values and our commitment to seeking spiritual growth, and whatever that might look like, and it is different for each of us. Our values seem common sense when you say them out loud, that all people have worth and dignity, that we ought to be fair and kind to each other, that we accept each other as we are, and encourage and support growth, that we commit to curiosity as we search for our own answers, and that we vote on things and let everyone have a turn speaking and being heard, that we work for a better world where people are free and empowered, and that we treat the earth with kindness as stewards of its health. That's not rocket science, folks. That's really just a recipe for being decent human beings. Don't be mean. Pick up your trash. Be kind. Take turns. Don't judge people. And keep learning. And that is what makes this a community. Yes, we also share a very generalized geographic location, the South Jersey Shore, but that's a little misleading. This congregation attracts people from 5 counties, and several carloads of people travel as much as an hour to get here each week from different directions. And as I look around, I see people who come together for more than their shared values. They gather to share this religious experience, yes, with the chalice and the pebbles and the singing and the listening and the learning, but you also gather because you like each other, for the most part. You spend time together outside of Sunday mornings. You visit one another. You travel and do fun things with each other. Your kids play together. This community is so much more than the sum of its parts. There is an alchemy that makes this place something special. This is a little embarrassing to admit as the minister, but I was a little surprised to see how high some folks rated spiritual development on the list of things they like about this place. As a minister, it's hard to measure what works and what doesn't for the people in the seats. Every Sunday, people tell me they like my sermons. Different people every Sunday. But rarely do I hear anyone talk about spiritual growth. They'll say, "That was just what I needed to hear," or "You touched me," or "You've given me something to think about." But I never hear it called spiritual. And that's not unusual. As with as many humanists and atheists and agnostics as populate our congregations, for Unitarian Universalists, the language of spiritual experience and spiritual development is not something we hear all that often. And yet, this group finds something here that you identify as deepening your spiritual life. And I'm going to know more about that, so expect me to start asking. I am fascinated and delighted that you are open to the work of spiritual growth, and I am curious what that looks like for each of you. And then finally, social justice was named. This congregation's story of origin includes a commitment to social justice and speaking truth in this part of the world. This congregation is known locally as one that shows up at protests and rallies, at demonstrations and marches. We are the ones who write letters to the editor and to Congress, who travel to Trenton to testify, and who have a Black Lives Matter sign out by the road. And a rainbow flag. Many rainbow flags. This is a congregation and a faith movement that believes deeply in righting the world's wrongs, in ethical living, environmental stewardship, and in lifting up those who are marginalized in our world. That, friends, is who you are. The next question, of course, is who do you want to be? The answer, reassuringly, was, for the most part, more of who you are now. Okay? You want to have bigger numbers, be a little more diverse, to accomplish more things, and to welcome more people in. You'd also like to be financially stable and out of debt, which sounds a little terrifying, but really isn't. And these things you talked about yesterday were smart, common sense proposals to achieve the goals you stated. You want to attract more people, so various forms of outreach were discussed. You want to attract more young adults and families with children, so targeted outreach is considered. There are programs you want to deepen your spiritual experience and to stimulate your minds. And you want programs that are open to the public so that more people come through our doors. I was relieved to learn also that you want your minister to be full-time. For those who are new or visiting, my contract is for 80% of full-time, which means I work some weeks and I'm off some weeks. And here's the thing that didn't get mentioned in all of the conversations and brainstorming work that happened. You will have to change. If we keep doing what we've been doing, we will keep getting the results we're getting now, which is to say, you'll have relatively slow but steady growth, gaining members at a slightly higher rate than they leave, and the levels of children and families and young adults and the rest will probably stay pretty steady. This place is attractive to the people who are sitting in this room. It is either not attractive enough or not on the radar of the people who are out there this morning. Not enough to cause them to get up and come here to worship. When we make adjustments to attract new people, they're probably going to be like this group, but not entirely. They're going to have different ideas and different needs. They may want to hear more variety in music, or they may want to participate in spiritual growth work not currently offered here, like transcendental meditation, for instance. To accommodate more people, we will have to accommodate more people. The seats on Sunday will get more crowded. You might not be able to sit in the same place every week unless you show up early and stake it out, which is a little weird. But then again, if you show up early enough, you can join the choir. There's an old story about a church consultant who works with congregations. They ask a group of assembled church members, how many people here want your church to grow? And every hand in the place goes up. And then they say, okay, who here wants their church to change? And there's silence. And that's the problem with a lot of growth strategies. They don't leave room and plan for change when growth happens. Now, it was encouraging yesterday to hear this group talk about broadening the tent of this congregation to include more people, but not just more people exactly like you. You want a well-rounded demographic array of people. You want to reflect the community in which we live. This congregation understands the richness that diversity brings to a community of seekers. People of color bring wisdom and culture to share, as do immigrants, the young, the old, the overeducated, and those who graduated high schools, got their GED, or maybe did neither. All of these voices are necessary to fill out the choir of this congregation, as our music director would say, and I'm not speaking just about the choir. We need all of those voices here to sing the harmony of what our mission is. Now, change, even welcome change, even sought after change, is not comfortable. Almost always it is uncomfortable in one way or another. And that's okay. This congregation knows how to be uncomfortable and live with it, and to learn from it and stretch and grow. 2 years ago, about now, maybe a little later, you spent an afternoon working with Alex Capitan. Remember Alex? He was sparkly. One of my favorite people. You spent a day working with Alex to learn about gender diversity. And Alex encouraged you to engage in discomfort as a spiritual practice, to notice what is uncomfortable and to explore why, and then perhaps to adjust internally to accommodate the new reality instead of rejecting it. This group knows how to grow, and not simply numerically or financially, but spiritually, because that's what this is. This congregation knows how to do its work and explore new ideas and try new things. We're not always perfect at it. Sometimes we're not always good at it, but we keep at it. When I first came here for a visit, and later as candidate to be your minister, I said something to you about churches and growth and change. You may remember this. I said every congregation, when asked, will say 4 things that they want: financial stability, more members, more social justice outreach sorts of things, and deeper spiritual experience. Right? You remember this? And I said, you need to do this. You need to deepen your spiritual experience, which will energize you to do social justice and outreach, which will attract more members, which will broaden your financial base of support. So the truly fortunate thing here is that this congregation has a pretty good handle on that reality. Nobody freaks out now when I do that. You've seen me you've seen me do that again and again. Yes, you still want financial stability, more members, social justice work, and deeper spiritual lives, but you are not locked into a rigid ideology that says they must be achieved in a particular order and each must be completed before the next is undertaken, because that's not how this works. All of these things happen in concert, and it will mean a gradual, gentle shift of the culture of this community. Classes and programming are going to start happening on times other than Sundays after church. And not everybody is going to be able to attend all things. Currently, that's kind of how we set up our schedule, is we do it so that there aren't overlapping or competing events and programs. But with more people and more things, that's going to happen. And eventually, it will become the new normal. Growth is good, but growth for its own sake is the philosophy of a cancer cell. Growth with a purpose to deepen our spiritual lives and improve the world around us, well, that's a different animal altogether. The work we are engaging in here is about weaving together all of our stories into a single colorful tapestry of experience and knowledge and love. I remind you what Reverend Karen Johnson told us in our reading today. Constellations of our lives. Humans make maps of stars, choosing some, ignoring others, to project our imaginations onto the heavens. These maps shift over time and across cultures. Names change for the same assemblage of bright points: drinking gourd, Big Dipper, plow, lost hunters, Saptarishi. Humans make constellations by connecting stars. Humans make meaning by connecting stories. The story to story, narrative to story. Some blaze bright, some are faint. Most are backdrop to the great and mundane human unfolding. Let us imagine the stories of our lives as a starry universe above our heads. And as leaders of this congregation, we are tasked and trusted to draw constellations in this, our beloved small universe. May the stories we connect draw constellations that reflect a shared ministry that calls out the best in us. And so I offer you this thought as you engage with this work of weaving and planning and creating. Remember that being uncomfortable can be a spiritual practice. And that being uncomfortable means you're probably learning something new and growing. Breathe into that discomfort. Embrace the awkward. Welcome the new and foreign, and learn to celebrate the new colors of thread that they bring to the woven fabric of this community. May the stories we connect draw constellations that reflect a shared ministry that calls out the best in us. May this be our practice and our prayer. Amen.